Hey everyone, welcome to Pop-Up Talks. In this talk today, we're going to be talking about whether or not to renovate or build new, in case you've ever wondered. We're going to be sharing builder advice to help you make the right decision. So renovating and building new from the ground up, regardless of what you do, doesn't mean that your home will equate to a lesser product one way or other. You can renovate existing space into a beautiful new dream home, and an experienced contractor can show you how. So today, joining us is Graham Huguet, from owner and general manager of My House Design Build team. Welcome, Graham.
Great to be here, Kathy.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. So you're the owner of My House Design Build team and a multi-award-winning renovator and custom home builder, including over 100 industry awards. That's a lot of awards. Notably the BC Georgie Renovator of the Year for 6 years running, and the 2019 Customer Satisfaction, oh my goodness, award. Am I missing anything, Graham? I know that we just had the Georgies and the HAVAN Awards for Housing Excellence.
Yeah, we did another virtual gala, went off really great. And so we're really blessed this year, now the 7th year in a row for being BC Georgie Award Renovator of the Year, as well as HAVAN's Renovator of the Year for Metro Vancouver. So
that's great, Graham. Well, congratulations. That's great accomplishments. I was actually reading up on you and your company, and it's really interesting. You actually have an extensive background in design and directing for theater and television. How cool is that?
Well, it's what I still do. To me, all of this is a drama, and it's a giant production, and I just direct and put all the pieces together, and I'm still coordinate and oversee all the design and the build. And so to me, I'm doing the same thing, just now it's real life versus make-believe. So it's really cool.
That's great. That's awesome. And you're also a Built Green certified builder, and your team is actually most noted for incorporating natural light and West Coast contemporary design, similar to that beautiful home you have in your background, which we'll come back and we'll talk to you about. So thanks again for joining us today for this Pop-Up Talks. Maybe we'll just dive right into the questions. So in the interest of just today's topic, which is renovate versus new build, that's a question that, you know, as designers and builders, we get quite a bit from homeowners. So how does somebody decide? Like, is there a checklist or something that can help a homeowner facilitate that decision-making process?
Well, we definitely have a checklist that we go through. The very first thing is you talk about your site or your lot. And so renovating, if you're going to do a substantial renovation, it's always good to compare and sort of ask a professional, you know, is this worthwhile in my investment here, or am I better to tear down and build new? So you want to first look at the site and look at what the setbacks and the bylaws say, because we live in a city where we have homes that are 100 years old, homes that are 40 years old, homes that are 10 years old, and so forth. And the bylaws have changed over time. And so it's possible a person who has an older home could be in a position where their home is larger than a new home would be allowed to have, or maybe their setbacks have changed. So sometimes looking at those types of site conditions will help you determine that maybe working with a renovation permit is a better way to go, because maybe you can grandfather in some of the old setbacks of the old bylaws. We did a heritage home down in the Dunbar area. Had we torn that house down and built new, they would have lost over 1,000 square feet of living space to conform to the new bylaws. But because we were able to grandfather it in, we were able to maintain all of the footprint and increase it by a basement suite and making a legal basement suite. So again, it's a discussion. Every job is different, every project is different, but you would definitely want to look at site conditions. You also want to look at what the services are, what the engineering requirements from the city might be. When you're building new, everything has to be new, and it's all downloaded to that homeowner in terms of costs from the city. Whereas with renovations, not always do you need to provide all new services. It just depends on the extensiveness and what municipality you're working with.
Right. Great tips, Graham. Like a lot of really unique things that, as a day-to-day homeowner looking at a home, it's hard to really know what you can and cannot do. So just really leaning on experts to do things like bylaw reviews, like you were saying, and understanding how to best leverage your project. Now, in our world of design and build, there's a lot of discussion about forever dream homes, and those are great homes to design and build. But the reality is sometimes there are homeowners out there that don't necessarily plan to live in their home forever. So maybe it's a more limited amount of time, regardless of what that might be. So if that is the case, where you are either designing and building a brand new home or renovating a home that's not going to be your forever home, what's the most important deciding factor? Talk to us a little bit about that.
It's an important question we ask right up front, because it really determines the direction. So for example, if somebody is only going to be in a home for a couple years, they really want to minimize the costs that they're going to spend. And they want to also make decisions not for themselves and their family, but something they can market and sell. For someone who actually wants to make this their home, and they maybe not their forever home, but long enough that they're wanting to be there, make it for them, that discussion is totally different than designing to market the house. But we talk about so many different factors these days. We get calls for families are moving in together sometimes. Kids are moving back in with parents, or parents are moving in with kids, or maybe they're setting up to have a suite that they can rent. Or maybe it's aging in place. We get calls for adding elevators and wheelchair accessibility, even though maybe that family's not there yet, but they're thinking about that for the future. So all of those things come into play in talking about what the use of the house will be for the next 10 years or so. And that will determine the direction design and budget goes.
Right. No, that's really, really good tips. Definitely. So we talk often about return on investment, or ROI, just in the context of any project. So let's talk about it in the context of if a homeowner was trying to decide between a renovation or a new build, which type of project has a higher return on investment?
Well, you're going to spend a lot more cash flow on a new build project. That isn't to say that a renovation could not also be as expensive or similar. It comes down to scope of work. And so what we look at in a renovation is, what are we keeping? Not so much, what are we going to be adding, but what are we keeping? And put a value on that. So for example, on an extensive renovation, I'm doing one right now in Horseshoe Bay. If we had torn that house down, they would have had to move the house away from the water. Their height restrictions would have been different, but under a renovation permit, we were able to keep the house. But all we're keeping is the foundation and about half of the framing. And then everything else is going to be new on that house. And in the end, it will be, it'll be a new house. Wow. So the cost to them, they're not saving really anything dollars and cents between a new build and a reno in that particular case. But it's how we get there and the ability to work with the municipality and to get that permitted and to stay where it is, that was worthwhile to do it that way. So it's not just about that return on investment from a either or, it's both of them can be an equal value. Typically, a renovation is going to give you the best if you're looking at it from a point that in the end result is I'm going to have a new house. One is a pathway through renovation. One is a pathway with new construction. The renovation typically is going to give you the best return on investment.
Right. Okay. But it's going to be different from project to project, it sounds like. Every project is so different. So really just leaning on experts like yourself to understand what that looks like for your specific project, I think is important to emphasize as well, just so you can come in and make an assessment of all the different options and what the best option is for that particular scenario.
Absolutely. And we as a company, we've sort of specialized in that niche of, I became a licensed builder specifically because I was doing mostly renovations and people were coming to me and saying, Should I tear down and build new, or should I renovate? What's good value? Well, what's a new builder, what's a custom builder going to say? They're going to say, oh, tear down, build new. What's a renovator going to say? They're always going to say, oh, you should renovate.
True.
And I wanted to be able to provide that unbiased feedback.
Right.
But it's project by project, and long-term goals, budgets, it's all of those things need to be discussed. We call it doing basically a feasibility analysis. That's our first phase for any project, right, is figuring out, is this feasible? Does it make sense? And sometimes we will actually come up with two scenarios, one for new build, one for reno, depending on the scope of work, and show them what the differences might be. Perfect.
That sounds awesome. That's great that you do that and help homeowners through that particular part of the process, because there's a lot of information to know, right? So, okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit here. So last question and discussion point. And I love how you and I actually use the same terminology. So we're sitting here with these beautiful backgrounds with, you know, all these beautiful finished walls. But I think what's really, really important, and take note of this, homeowners, there's two terms that I like to use and Graham likes to use as well. We call it what's behind these walls, these beautiful walls, and what's below the ground. So maybe Graham, talk to us about firstly what that means, and secondly, why it's so important for homeowners to understand what is behind the walls and what's below the ground.
Right. So most people purchase houses after, you know, if they go on a tour or a realtor shows them a house, they maybe make one or two passes through the house and they open some cupboard doors, and what are they looking at? They're just looking at the finishes. And most people make decisions based on that. And then when people are renovating or built new, they definitely focus on those finishes. But the finishes can be changed. But what can't be changed are the bones of the house and how the house functions as a system. Building is a science, and how our houses operate is a science. So to us, you talked about us being a certified built green company. We also are a certified net zero builder and renovator. So we've been building energy efficient renovations and new homes for at least 20 years. I've been part of the Built Green program, Energy Guide. And so we look at the bones of the house in terms of how does it function, in terms of how the walls are assembled, the windows, the doors, the exteriors, how the foundation is, or a crawl space, what the insulation throughout the house. What we do on any renovation first is we do an energy audit. So we're actually able to determine all of those things with an energy advisor. In Vancouver, it's mandatory to do that on any project over $20,000. We do that on any renovation because it's great home information, great value, and it gives us a baseline. And then we can start talking about what's behind the walls of that existing home. The same goes for building a new home. There is building code and building bylaws. Each municipality has a slightly different adaptation of the BC building code. Many municipalities now are following different aspects of what they call the STEP code. And the STEP code really gears itself towards energy efficiency. And so we talk about that right in the very beginning, whether it's renovation or new construction, what the long-term goal for that homeowner is. And we explain what net zero is, or what passive house is, what higher energy efficiency can mean to them, and what their options are right before we even get started in the design stage, because that all has to happen behind the walls. Right. Your mechanical system, your heating, lighting, how your house is as a healthy home. I think today, especially because of what we've gone through these last year, people are inside their home and they're going, I want a healthy environment. And a lot of times that's based on what's behind the walls. So.
That's really, really good insight, Graham. And yeah, again, just reiterating, as any homeowner out there, that's a really important piece of your project and home to actually consider, that a lot of people forget about because they look at just all the pretty stuff, which is important too. Obviously, your house has to be beautiful, but asking those right questions. Yeah, so it's been great chatting with you, Graham. Like I mentioned it earlier, and you mentioned that as well, it's really important for people to understand that every single project is unique and really deserves the knowledge and input of experienced design and build professionals like yourself, and just to make sure that the homeowner maximizes their ROI, whether they are renovating or building new. So I know, Graham, you have one final parting tip that you'd like to share with the audience. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is do your homework on figuring out who your team's going to be. Make sure you've not just got a referral for a builder or a designer, but figure that team out. And look at the industry. For example, go on to HAVAN's website. They should be a member of the Homebuilders Association for sure, because a lot of people don't realize that you need to be licensed to be an electrician, a plumber, a gas fitter, an engineer. You also need to be licensed to build custom homes, but in renovations, there is no licensing. So anybody can do it. So you'd really want to do your homework on what are the credentials, what's the expertise, what's the education of the people that you're going to have work on this project with you. And so if you'll spend the time up front, figure out your team, and then spend more time than you expect in the design, planning, permit stage, you'll have a great building experience. Most people rush through or don't have a complete understanding of that design planning stage, and it doesn't get done properly. And then they don't have as good an experience as they could have had in the renovation process.
Yeah, great tip, Graham. Yeah, the planning side is so important. Absolutely. So thanks again, Graham, for joining us today. For our viewers, remember, HAVAN's virtual parade of homes has tons and tons of other pop-up talks like these with trending topics. We have tons of beautiful homes for you to check out and buildings and designers to connect with. Make sure you do this up until Sunday, June 13th. You can check the panel on the left-hand side of your screen just to navigate their virtual parade platform. Thank you to our media sponsors, Postmedia, Western Living Magazine, and the Daily Hive for helping to provide the opportunity for homeowners to connect with our members to build and renovate your dream home right the first time. I'm Kathy Ewan, founder of Phase One Design. Thanks again for joining us, and see you in the next talk.